In this video, let us study regarding the different types of factoring. The factoring can be classified into four basic types as recourse and non-recourse factoring, advance and maturity factoring, conventional or full factoring, domestic and export factoring. Now, let us take the first one, recourse and non-recourse factoring. In a recourse factoring arrangement, the factor has recourse to the client or the selling firm. That is, if the receivables purchased turn out to be bad, the customer is not able to pay the amount on the specified date, then that risk is borne by the selling firm or the client itself. The factor is not taking that risk. The risk of bad debts is borne by the client and the factor does not assume the risk of the default associated with the receivables. That is called a recourse factoring. So if there is bad debt, that bad debt will be reverted to the selling firm or recourse to the selling firm. Now coming to the non-recourse factoring, we can understand that the main difference between the recourse factoring and the non-recourse factoring is based on this risk factor. In the case of non-recourse factoring, the risk or the loss on account of non-payment by the customers of the selling firm, it is borne by the factor and the factor cannot claim this amount from the selling firm. Since the factor bears the risk of the non-payment, the commission charged by the factor for the services is higher than under the recourse factoring. They charge a high fees for the services they provide because they are bearing the complete risk of bad debts. That is why factors are charging high fees in the case of non-recourse factoring. So that is how we differentiate recourse factoring from non-recourse factoring. Now coming to the second type of classification, let us take the advance factoring. Under this advance factoring arrangement, certain percentage of receivables is paid in advance to the client and the balance amount is paid on the guaranteed payment date. So the total amount is paid in parts. The first part or a certain percentage is paid in advance before collection of the receivables and the remaining is paid after collection of the receivables or on the specified date in the future. And then in the case of maturity factoring, no advance is paid to the client and the payment is made to the client only on the collection of receivables or the guaranteed payment date as may be agreed between the parties, that is the client and the factor. Thus, maturity factoring consists of sale of accounts receivables to a factor with no payment of advance funds at the time of the sale of these accounts receivable to the factor. Thus, we can say that the main difference between advance and maturity factoring is that in the case of advance factoring, an advance amount is paid even before the collection of receivables, but in the case of maturity factoring, that advance amount is not paid. The total amount is paid only after the collection of the receivables from the customer. And then coming to the conventional or full factoring, in this type of factoring, the factor performs all the services of factoring, including the non-recourse as well as advanced factoring, and hence it is also called old line factoring. This is the form of conventional factoring or the factoring in the initial stages in the beginning period. That is why it is called old line factoring. In those times, the factors performed all the services like advancing as well as non-recourse functions. Now let us discuss the classification based on domestic and export business. The basic difference between the domestic and export factoring is regarding the number of parties involved. In the case of domestic factoring, three parties are involved, like the client, factor, and the customer of the client. And in the case of an export factoring, four parties are involved, like client, customer, export factor, and the import factor. The client here means exporter. When it is coming to the export and import business, client means the exporter. Customer will be the importer in the other country. And then export factor, there is a factor of the exporter, and the import factor is the factor of the importer. So two factors are involved in export factoring, and that is why it is also called two-factor system of factoring. Now, since we have got a basic idea regarding the factoring services, let us end up this video lecture here. Thank you for watching this video. For more videos, you can subscribe this channel.